Welcome to the Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled. We're thrilled to take you on a monthly journey into the minds behind the most cutting-edge products hitting the market today. From the coolest gadgets lighting up your Instagram feeds to groundbreaking services revolutionizing our daily lives, we're here to spotlight the innovations and, more importantly, the innovators. So gear up for an energetic and informative ride as we delve deep into the stories, the challenges, and the triumphs of the creative geniuses shaping our future. This is Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled. And now your host, A.D. Edwards.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled. I'm your host, A.D. Edwards, and today we have a truly inspiring guest who has transformed the world of men's grooming as we know it, and also the world of clean beauty. He's a visionary entrepreneur, a pioneer in the personal care industry, and the co-founder of The Art of Shaving, a brand that truly redefined luxury shaving and was later acquired by Procter Gamble. But he didn't stop there. He went on to revolutionize the beauty and wellness space with Ingredients, a brand that's dedicated to full transparency and pure plant-based formulations. He's a master of branding, a leader in innovation, and an advocate for clean living. Please welcome to the show, Eric Malka. Eric, welcome to our show, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you here. I know our guests will be excited to hear your story, and I know time is of the essence. So we're going to talk about quite a few things, but we're going to move along, and we're going to start at about the time you came up with the idea. We're going to go to the time the company, The Art of Shaving, was acquired by Procter & Gamble. And now that you've done this, a lot of entrepreneurs can't wait to get to the point that someone wants to buy in. But then what do you do after that? Some people just go off to Easy Street. Not you, sir. You kept going. We're going to talk about the next thing you started and what you have in the future. So let's get going. First off, take us back to The Art of Shaving, the conception. What inspired this idea?
A couple of things inspired it. On my end, I started working for a company in New York City. I had to pay the rent, and they just so happened to be importers of old-fashioned shaving products from England. As part of that job, I was sent to London on business missions. And there I saw probably a dozen shops in the Mayfair neighborhood that sold old shaving accoutrements and offered barber services in the back. And I thought, hey, this is something that could work in New York. There's nothing like it. And I'm sure New Yorkers will like it. Simultaneously, my wife was studying aromatherapy products and herbal medicine, her passion, and she started formulating products, and she made me this oil to put on my skin before I applied the cream with a brush. All these things together gave us the idea to open a tiny store in Manhattan. We decided to sell our car to finance the shop. We were too young to know that it was impossible to do with $12,000, but we did it anyway. Sometimes,
Sometimes that's the advantage, not knowing what you're not supposed to do.
And they call beginner's luck is really dumb luck. If you knew better, you wouldn't even try it.
Right. So let me ask this question. From the time you came up with the conception and she had the formula, of course you're doing this in your home, how much time passed between you were actually in a shop?
Believe it or not, it took 3.5 months.
Really? That's pretty rapid, pretty quick.
It was extremely rapid, which is kind of who we are. We just we shoot and ask questions later. We're on the go, we're action, we're go-getters. And, I remember my wife saying a month after we had the idea that we hadn't found a shop yet. And I said, well, No, she said, we didn't open the business yet. And I said, well, I'm busy with my job. You need to go if you find a location, we can open a store.
Yes.
So she spent a day walking the Upper East Side, every inch of it, until she found a location on 62nd Street. And came back to me, and a few days later, we went to see the shop, and they rented it to us because it was such a bad location. And about 45 days later, we were open for business
That's excellent.
with crazy, furniture from flea markets and college
Yes.
retail stores that sold furniture for college kids. I mean, we just put it together.
Eric, what do you say to those who have ideas and they deal with what's called what they call it, analysis paralysis? They want everything to be perfect before they start their business. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I've had a lot of thoughts on that. First of all, I tell people that ideas are easy. It's really the execution that is the most important thing. The art of shaving was not a new idea. It was around for hundreds of years in London. But the way we brought it to the US market, the way we connected with that consumer was what made the big difference. And when we started our first store, we started with $12,000.
Mm-hmm.
Our second store cost $75,000, and our third store cost $250,000. So, if we were waiting to build a store the way we had envisioned it, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And a lot of people think that, first of all, perfection is good in some areas. My wife is a perfectionist, and in creating the best products possible, perfectionism is good. But she was always disappointed in me for launching them before she was completely satisfied. And my response was, you're never going to be satisfied. You're a perfectionist. So it's good enough. Let's go. We can keep improving on it. And, starting is more important than getting it right.
I agree. That's why I'm talking to you in my closet, because I had to start the show. I can't wait to get a perfect studio and things of that nature. You got to get it going. Now, so you got the art of shaving up and running. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced launching the brand?
Well, when we launched the first store, we didn't have a brand. We were buying products from my employer, who was importing those products from England. And we became a victim of our success. The store was doing pretty well right out of the gates. Not incredible, but we were breaking even from day one. And I think in December we made a nice profit. And his eyes and his brain were running around thinking, this store is going to do almost as much business as I'm doing after 10 years, and they're going to be profitable, and I'm not.
Uh-huh.
They struck a chord. So he basically came to us and says, I want you to make me an equal partner, or I'm not going to supply you any more products.
Really?
So that became a theme for me in my life. Every time I face a challenge, I find an opportunity. And when we opened our second store, we imported other brands for the store, and we started to create our own product line. We didn't want to depend on anyone ever again
Right.
for our livelihood. So that's when we started to make our own products in 1998. We had enough money with the revenue from our stores to create our own brand of shaving products. And that was a game changer for us.
So you're in this industry, you're thriving, but this is an industry that's saturated when you get into it. So how did you differentiate the art of shaving in a market dominated by major razor companies?
Well, it's saturated in mass market, not in luxury.
Okay.
In luxury, there was no category. That's why we started with our own stores, because we knew that the retailers were really not paying attention to men's grooming.
Mm-hmm.
So we usually, when you create a brand, you compete with people that are selling the same luxury products to that premium consumer. In our case, we were recruiting people from mass market to luxury that were in the wrong category. It was an anomaly that, you know, if you can afford a better car, better homes, better clothes, better restaurants, you're going to have an offering from the premium consumer. And if you have humble means, you're going to go mass market. But in shaving, everybody was buying mass market products. There wasn't a luxury offering. Therefore, we found ourselves in a market anomaly
Right.
where both the affluent consumer and the mass market consumer were buying the same products in that category.
Exactly. So that was distinct. I can see what you're saying. Now, I'm going to date myself a little bit here, Eric. I could remember I had the subscription to GQ, to Details Magazine, Esquire. I remember the ads, The Art of Shaving. What role did
Yeah.
branding play in The Art of Shaving success? And how did you craft the luxury experience?
Yeah, branding was everything. We're brand builders, and we decided that was one of the biggest factors in our success. We weren't just building a company, we wanted to build an iconic brand. And what you saw in GQ and Details and Esquire magazines were our public relations effort, making the media talk about our brand, which is even more powerful than ads. And PR became a huge driver for the brand. And really, for us, it was all about experience because I'm obsessed with customer advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything I do is focused on my customers at all time. And I think that was a really important part of our culture. And what we realized really early on as we started selling to Neiman Marcus and Saks and Bloomingdale's is that customers can go anywhere to buy our products now, even online after 2001, 2002. So we had to create a new reason for people to come to our stores. And that's where we started to play with the experiential side of retail, whether it was barber services, the aromas you smelled in the store, the way the store transported you in a different era, the music you
Creating
heard.
an experience.
It was creating a real experience for that consumer to be on a journey.
Yes, yes. So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean all the way down to the packaging and the boxes and the bottles and the ingredients. Everything has to work together.
Yeah, I agree with that, Eric. I know there's some places that we as consumers, we can get the product from various places, but we enjoy the experience and we enjoy the feeling you get and going in certain establishments, and that's what brings
That's
you
right.
back. So,
But we also tried to give you that. We also wanted people to have that experience at home, not just in our stores.
okay,
So after we sold the company, and P&G wanted to find out why consumers were so obsessive about our brand. They wanted to understand the magic sauce. People were not talking about the quality of the products or the quality of their shave. They were talking about the ritual in the morning.
Yeah.
That really was, we didn't know how to call it back then. Now we call it self-care. But we were at the forefront of self-care for men,
Right.
which was very, very new.
So what was what was the turning point where you knew that the brand was going to be a major success? You said day one or week one, you're breaking even, and to the point that your employer was kind of looking, saying, "Hey, I've been doing this for 10 years, and you're doing great." So where did it happen that you said, "Okay, what we have is something
In
special"?
1990, we were still working on finishing our products for our brand. We didn't go into production yet, and the phone rings at our Madison Avenue store, and it's an executive at Neiman Marcus. And he asked us if we were interested in meeting with their teams to talk about opening a shop inside their Dallas flagship.
Wow.
And obviously, I think 2 weeks later we were in Dallas with them, and the president of Neiman Marcus approved us to open a shop inside Neiman Marcus. And at that point, I knew that we were on a trajectory to building a great brand, because those shops were only offered to some of the most iconic brands in the world.
Yes.
And we were kind of the new kid in town, like elbow to elbow with some of the greatest brands in the world being sold at Neiman Marcus, and having a whole space to showcase the brand. So that's really when it happened in 1999.
That's awesome. We talk on this show often about entrepreneurs seeing the importance of filling a void. And you guys came in and there was no one doing what you did. And so you were able to start making progress right away. Here's a question about we get into the scaling and selling to Procter & Gamble. What was the process like to scale the art of shaving from a boutique brand to an industry leader?
They were building blocks. So I think we had about four stores. By 2001, we had 4 stores. And it was expensive to build stores. And we realized we didn't want to really bring in investors yet. We were too small for that. So we pivoted to wholesale. And because Neiman Marcus had come to us, we said, maybe there's other retailers that want to sell our brand. And little did we know, over 800 retailers took on the art of shaving between 2002 and 2004. And that was a game changer for us to scale from a brand awareness perspective. Now we're being sold in 800 locations in the United States. And that gave us enough scale to attract investors at a decent valuation that wouldn't dilute us completely. And with that money, we started to open more stores in malls across America. So we really pivoted, we really pivoted to be able to scale this based on the funding requirements, right? Our funding journey really tells the story of how we scaled the company, because we were lucky that our first 2 stores were generating over $750,000 worth of profits by 1999, which is a huge gift from the universe.
Yes, because you started in 96, right?
Yeah, so within 2 years, we're making almost $1 million in cash per year. And that was what financed everything we did, without needing banks, without having to bootstrap, without having investors. We were able to do a lot with that money, including elevating our own personal lives.
It did open up a lot of options. When you look at some companies, you have large companies that decide to stay private. At what point did you realize that acquisition by a company like Procter & Gamble was a viable move for your company?
As soon as you start raising money, in my opinion, you're making that decision, unless it's from friends and family. But usually, if you're building a brand and you're starting to bring investors, those investors want to cash out within 7 years or so. So it's the beginning of the end. My investors cashed out in less than 4 years, and others in less than 2 years. But I knew in 2002, I knew that I wanted to exit my company within a time frame and within a financial range. And we kind of hit it right in those ranges. So I was preparing for it for over 6-7 years.
Okay. Now, when you went to the table and you were negotiating and you look back at it, what would you say was the most valuable lesson you learned from negotiating and completing a sale? Because a lot of people want to sell their company, but they haven't been where you already been. So what was the most valuable lesson you've learned?
What I've learned is that I've learned so many lessons during the acquisition process. First of all, imagine you find yourself one day being the quarterback in the Super Bowl, but you've never played football. That's how I felt.
That's scary.
That is scary. Like, oh shit. This is the biggest opportunity of my life, the biggest game in my life, and I've never played this sport. This is how I felt. Biggest transaction of my entire life, and I haven't been trained for M&A at all. I'm built for, being a bootstrap entrepreneur, not a banker.
Okay.
And I have in front of me the best team in the world.
Yes.
They do this every day, and I feel like the kid that's slaying the dragon in those movies.
Yes.
Um, so first lesson is, um, know that we don't know
Okay.
what we're doing in that moment. Some people are better equipped, but most entrepreneurs are not trained in M&A. Your bankers, if you hire investment bankers, their interest is not entirely aligned with yours. It doesn't mean that they don't want you to do well. It just means that they win even if you don't win the way you want.
Right. Like a broker in the stock market. He's going to win if you sell or buy.
That's right. So if I sell for 10 million or 12 million, they make just a little bit more money. I make $2 million more. They might make an extra 50,000.
Right.
So that there's not an alignment there. Also, if you sign a contract with good terms or bad terms to sell your companies, the broker makes the same amount of money.
Right. Because he's providing the same service. Yes.
He gets paid for the transaction. He doesn't get paid because you got good terms or bad terms. The thing I learned also is to really try to get the transaction done as soon as you can and cut out the noise outside and inside your head. I help a lot of friends of mine and businessmen to sell their companies, and I hear them talking and overthinking the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, it's just agreeing on a price, having the lawyers do the documents, and closing the deal and getting paid.
Right.
Everything else is just distraction.
Yeah.
So we try to overthink it and what they're thinking and how to posture ourselves. Keep it simple, keep the noise out, get the transaction done quickly, move the ball to the finish line as fast as you can, get the right deal, and move on with your life.
Gotcha.
Also, make sure you know for sure that selling your company is what you want.
Right.
I've talked people out of selling their companies because with the money they're going to get for their company, they can't sustain their lifestyle.
Right.
There's mathematics around calculating if you're selling, what's your selling threshold. So there's so many lessons, man. We can talk about it for days.
So you got to count the cost beforehand and look at life without the company being under your care. That's great advice. Thank you for that. Did selling a company change your perspective on business and entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
In what ways?
Yeah. It was an evolution, but I realized a lot of things. First of all, to go from being an illegal immigrant to selling your company to Procter Gamble in 24 years, I'm a lucky guy.
Mm-hmm.
I was able somehow to avoid a lot of the pitfalls that most entrepreneurs fall into.
Right.
So I started to reverse engineer. Why did that happen to me? What did I do right? And how can I use these lessons to teach other entrepreneurs that are coming up? Freedom, financial freedom, is a huge gift as an entrepreneur. When you're bootstrapped, when you're stressed out, you're running your business, all your eggs are in that basket. Your mind can be occupied by a lot of space in your mind is occupied. So taking all that off my shoulders was allowing me to think more clearly and more freely. There's so many things that change, but one thing I did after I sold my business is I really started to learn about how to have a healthier emotional system, spiritual system, and physical system. And I realized that mindset is everything. I think it says that behind you in the closet.
Yes.
And really, I can remember times, it's not comfortable to be an entrepreneur. It's an uncomfortable journey. It's
Yes,
difficult.
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And having a strong emotional system, a strong physical system, and
It's a
spiritual system
necessity.
can really help. It really can help you navigate that journey, and increase your chances of succeeding.
Yes, exactly. If you could go back and do one thing differently during the growth of the art of shaving, what would that be?
Um, I would probably bring in investors a little bit early on so that I can bring a management team early on. I only brought in my management team 2 years before selling the business, so we didn't really have time to do magic together. And it was an incredible team. I was holding on too much to equity, and I think I could have had a better outcome, giving up a little bit more equity and going higher at exit. But overall, I would not change a thing, to be honest with you. I'm nitpicking. In 12 years, going from kitchen table to strategic acquisition, I think if you try to criticize yourself, you're being a little bit hard
I
on
would agree,
yourself.
Eric, because that's an awesome trajectory, awesome story. So, as I mentioned before, most people when they sell, they go off into easy street. So here you are, you sold. Let's talk about this transition to clean beauty and ingredients. What inspired you to pivot into the clean beauty and wellness space with ingredients?
Well, I took time first. When I sold the business, I had three priorities: my kids, which were babies. I wanted to be really there for them as a parent. My health, that I had kind of neglected, like many entrepreneurs. We're working too hard to really take care of ourselves. And my assets, that I was lucky enough to get. How do I, preserve my assets and manage them correctly? And later on, we started in 2014. We decided to start strategic brand investments, to start supporting the next generation of entrepreneurs. We invested in two companies in Florida, which we exited in 2022. We learned a lot about being investors in that realm. After exiting, no, I'm sorry. In 2019, we decided to start ingredients. My wife really wanted to create the most natural brand the industry had ever seen, but I knew too well that building a brand, I had done it before. Once you climb the mountain once, you realize how stupid an idea that was. You're not going to do it another time. Now you know what you're into.
But you
But
did, but you did it another time, Eric.
I wasn't. I can't argue with the wife.
Smart
I
man,
told her.
smart man.
I told her it was a bad idea. Let's not do this. It takes a lot of money. It takes a lot of effort. And she talked me into it,
Happy wife,
obviously.
happy life.
So we did ingredients. It was a beautiful brand, but sure enough, what I told her turned out to be true. It was a lot more work than we anticipated, that we were willing to put in. It took a lot more money that we wanted to put in, and I came to the realization that that's not what is fulfilling to me. So we had to really part ways with ingredients, in order to really focus on our investment of strategic brand investments. And now we're working with multiple brands that we're helping to expand. The way I can describe it best is that, if you're a top player, let's say in the NBA, you're a top player in the NBA, and you're 22 years old, you're at your prime, and you're on the court, you're kicking ass, you're winning championships, you're getting rings. You take the same player when he's 50 years old. If you put him back on the court, he's getting killed. That's not where he belongs, man. He belongs in the owner's box. He belongs in the coaching staff. He
Eric,
belongs in the.
Eric, I understand that analogy, but I do have to admit that sometimes you have great player coaches. And I know that you part ways with ingredients, but I want to ask a few more questions because that's a great idea. It's a phenomenal idea.
Phenomenal idea.
So let me ask this. why was at the time transparency a big focus for ingredients? Why is it that that was important to your wife? Or
It's our life's work. I mean, my wife and I, we live for promoting natural lifestyle, natural ingredients. We feel that we live in a very toxic world, and the personal care industry is filled with toxic ingredients that are making people sick, especially women that use so many products on a daily basis. So we wanted to make a change, but sometimes we realize that our purpose, the way we believe we're going to achieve our purpose, is not always the right way to achieve our purpose. So when we let go of ingredients, we didn't let go of our purpose.
okay,
We just changed the way we go about it. Instead of trying to um, show the world how to reduce toxicity with our brand, we're now doing it to multiple brands. We want to touch more brands and bring ingredients philosophy into many more categories with the efforts of great founders that have the stamina and the ideas with us behind them to conquer the world.
so do you think that it's interesting now in the information age, things travel a lot faster, and as you
Yes.
mentioned, we are becoming more aware of the things that's been used not only in the makeup products but also in the food that we've been consuming for years. So with that in mind, do you think that consumers' demand for clean natural products will continue to rise?
I believe that consumer consciousness around health is growing dramatically, but there's also a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of confusion, and there's also a lot of self serving advice. Consumers, unfortunately, believe what brands tell them. But this is a non regulated industry where brands can almost say anything to consumers and put almost anything in their products. And that becomes a real issue of who do you believe, what's the right information, and really clean beauty is not as clean as people think, but it's cleaner than non-clean products. So, to answer your question, I hope so.
Uh-huh.
I hope that consumers are going to be more demanding of brands, and brands are reacting to that because I think the consciousness is elevated. I look at it from 30 years ago where nobody was talking about it to now where the younger generation are all about the environment and about natural ingredients and taking care of themselves, and the wellness industry is exploding. But I think there's still a lot of work to be done from the standpoint of corporate America that still
Yes.
are selling 95%, 97% of products in the personal care industry are being sold by conglomerates that are not going in the clean direction.
Yes.
So only 2% of the industry is clean.
Right. Now, are you at liberty, Eric, to mention some of the brands that you're dealing with at this time that has gone in that clean
Yes.
direction?
Well, we're working with 3 brands right now, and we're onboarding more every day. Not every day, but we're looking at brands every day. We're working with a brand called Jack Henry out of California. It's a
I'm familiar with
man's hair
I'm
care.
familiar with Jack Henry. Yes.
So we're a shareholder of Jack Henry. They're a very clean brand. We love what they do. We are also working with a brand called Barberino, which is kind of the art of shaving 2.0 from Italy. They have a beautiful store on Madison Avenue, and we're going to expand to become the #1 luxury men's grooming brand in the world. Their products are not as clean as I would like them to be, but we are cleaning them up as we speak. That's how we bring ingredients into our portfolio.
Yes.
And we just closed on a new deal to support a local brand in Miami Beach called Miami Beach Bum.
Mm-hmm.
It's an outdoor sun care brand for women sold at Walmart, Whole Foods, and soon CVS. So we're very proud to bring them into our portfolio. And then we're looking at more brands. Hopefully, some of your viewers might come our way.
Of course, we're going to get information about that, and you're going to tell us how we can get in touch with those brands at the end of this episode. But I want to ask this question about the companies that you're working with. How do these companies educate consumers about the importance of non-toxic formulations? Do they put stuff on a website? How do they educate so that we can become a people who know the importance of what we're putting on our skin?
Everything you ingest or breathe or put on your skin, make sure you know what's inside. Read the ingredients. That's really the most important part of being a conscious, and you have to protect yourself. We don't have regulations to protect the consumer in this country. So the consumer has to protect itself by educating themselves, by looking at ingredients list. If you see too many chemical words in that ingredients list, try to stay away from it. Go to natural stores and try to keep products as natural as you can.
That makes sense. Now, when it comes to entrepreneurial mindset and leadership, I have a few more questions to ask you before I let you go. How do you stay ahead of the trends and disruptions in the beauty and wellness industry? Because you seem to be ahead of the curve.
Yeah, we try to stay. Listen, we don't follow trends. We follow what's going on with the industry, but we try to. I believe in being different. I believe in innovation as a building block of creating a great brand. So, by copying others, you can inspire yourself by other brands, but you really have to dance to your own drumbeat, and figure out how to really set yourself apart from everyone else in the world. That's the only way you're going to create a great brand. How are you going to differentiate yourself? What's different about you? Why am I even talking to you as a brand?
Yes. Right? What's a mistake that you see a lot of new entrepreneurs making when trying to build brands?
Well, they're confusing their company name for a brand, first of all.
Elaborate.
You can say, I can tell you that my plumber, whose company is called J&R Plumbing, that's a brand name, but that doesn't make you a brand. That makes you a company. So to build a brand is very different than to build a company. And I speak a lot about this because branding is a science of its own. It really is rooted in innovation. It's rooted in emotionality of the customer relationship with your brand, experience, its packaging, its positioning, its pricing, it's elevating the category of products that you're in. It's aspirational. And I think a lot of people think they're building a brand, but they're really building just a company. And there's some great companies out there. Nothing wrong with it.
Yes.
But that's not building a brand.
Brand is more than just a name. Got it.
Is more than just a name and a product.
So you talked about the management team. It was a good management team you had at the Art of Shaving. You wish we'd have brought them in earlier. How do you cultivate a strong company culture and leadership style?
At first it was kind of accidental. We were just being who we are. But at one point you need to understand, everybody has a company culture, whether they consciously identify what it is or not, they have one. And hopefully you have a good one. But once you consciously identify what your company culture is, that can become magical. Once you start stoking that flame with that culture. In our case, it was focused on, being obsessive about our customers' interest. Everything we did was in the interest of the customer. The second thing was we were all about promoting health. So that became a huge value for the company. We only use natural ingredients. We want to improve men's health was the purpose of our brand. It goes beyond selling products and making profits. It really is having an impact on society. And your employees feel that. They want to be part of something bigger than just hawking products for a profit. They want to know that they're adding value in society. And the way you do that is through a very strong purpose. Culture is about values and communicating those values. It's about vision and and getting employees that share your values, your vision, and your purpose. And that's what makes them take ownership in your mission to succeed.
Yes, yes, yes. When it comes to entrepreneurship, uh, what habits or routines you think contribute to your personal and professional success?
My routines, I wish I had started much earlier, but my routine for the past many years is really to I start my day taking care of my
Uh-huh.
kids. My number one priority: get them out the door quickly, so I can get on to my second priority, which is me.
do you do
um,
you
it's exercising, it's
okay.
meditation, it's healthy. Drinking some good tea, and move my body, meditate, which is kind of a prayer
Uh-huh.
mode, quiet moments, and start my day, feeling already accomplished by 10 a.m. or 9:30 a.m.
Okay. Sounds like a good routine there. Do you believe that entrepreneurship is something that a person's born with or something that they can learn?
I think there are traits that you're wired with. I can see it in my kids that one is more entrepreneurial than the other. It is a wiring. I think it's the difference between book smart and street smart. We talk about that.
Yes.
Very smart, you've got some brilliant people on both sides of that aisle, but
Yes.
the book smarts are not always entrepreneurs, and the street smarts are not always, academics.
Yes. Yes. True. True.
So I think you're kind of born with it. I think there's something in your belly that longs for it. I don't think it's much of a risk taker attitude as much as it is somebody that is always looking to break rules and challenge the status
Right.
quo.
That makes sense. Where do you see
If
the
you follow the rule, man, you're never going to be an
this is
entrepreneur.
true. This is true because nothing will ever be innovated. Innovators,
You got to break some
yes,
eggs,
you got
man.
to break some eggs to make that
Don't break
omelet.
the law.
Yes,
Break the law. You don't want to be that guy, but break eggs all you want.
break eggs, not the law. I hear that. Do you think that, or basically not? I know you think it's going to be going, but where do you see the clean beauty industry heading in the next 5 to 10 years?
I hope it's going up personally. I hope it's going to be a game changer. Listen, we're already talking at the highest level of government right now, which has never happened before. That toxicity and disease something's got to change, right?
Yes,
So, listen, I hope it's going to be a game changer. I hope it's going to be. I hope synthetic ingredients are going to be illegal in five
that'd be
years.
awesome. Are there any emerging trends or innovations that excite you right now in the industries?
I mean, you know what? The emerging trend I'm seeing right now is back to retail, back to offline.
Okay.
You know, building a brand online, we now know after 10 years is not easy, and even the greatest native brands are adding retail to their strategy because they know that online you hit a
Mm-hmm.
ceiling. So I think the big trend I'm seeing is back to retail. I think retailers and I think having brick and mortar elements to your brand is back in play. And it's not whether for a long time we were talking about online versus offline. We're talking about both now. It's online and offline to serve that consumer the right way.
Gotcha. I have two more questions for you. The first question is, what advice would you give someone who wants to create a brand that truly stands out?
What do I tell someone who wants to really build a brand that really stands out? Um, you know, what are you? What can you do better than anyone else in the world?
Uh-huh.
And how do you bring innovation to a world that already has everything?
Right.
It's not just about making that widget cheaper or better.
Uh-huh.
It's breakthrough innovation. How you bring something to market that people really need, that fills a problem that nobody's ever filled, and doing it and executing it at an incredible level.
And I think that's what you did with the art of shaving. Like you said, it was about the smell in the shop. It was about the feel of, and because, men's been shaving for thousands of years. So, but what are you doing
That's
different?
right.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Now, if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot. It's tough. I think enjoy the ride a little bit more, but at the same time, I don't think I would want to be less obsessive about succeeding as I was,
Because
I was all in.
because that's what made you be where you are today,
That's right. There's a time and a place, right? There's no balance. There's no work-life balance. I was 100% in, and then I was 100% out. So I don't know. I did pretty well, so I would kind of not want to cramp my younger self too much. You don't want to give advice to guys, winning the game, right?
Say, hey, just enjoy life, young Eric. Enjoy life.
Enjoy it. And try to enjoy the ride more, but it was fun. Yeah. Listen.
So, Eric, it's been an incredible conversation. Your journey from revolutionizing men's grooming with the art of shaving to providing clean beauty with ingredients is nothing short of inspiring, I tell you. It's clear that your commitment to innovation, transparency, and quality has left a lasting impact on both industries. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and your expressions and your experiences with us and your vision for the future. For our listeners, Eric, who want to learn more about the companies you work with or connect with you, what is the best place to find you and them?
Well, thank you for those kind words. You can find me at ericmalka.com is the easiest way to find me. Same website as strategicbrandinvestments.com.
Gotcha. And to our audience, if you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to subscribe to Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and please review it. If you do that, it helps us grow and helps us bring more guests like Eric Malka today. And as always, keep innovating, keep creating, and never stop unveiling your inner innovator. Until next time, I'm your host, A.D. Edwards, signing off.
You've been listening to Ingleside Reviews, Innovators Unveiled. Our passion is to take you on a journey into the minds behind the most cutting-edge products hitting the market today. It's an honor to have on the show the creative geniuses shaping our future. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, and review. Hit our website at inglesidereviews.com. On Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Ingleside Reviews. And on Twitter at Ingleside Review. See you next time.